Saying sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com. It's the Ed Bernstein Show, Home Edition. Now, here's your host, Ed Bernstein.
Hi, and welcome to our show. Well, I'm having a lot of fun interviewing all these prospective judicial candidates. And today we have two wonderful women. A little bit later in the show, Jasmin Lilly-Spells will be on our show. And now it's my pleasure to welcome back. It was Bita Yeager. You have been on before.
So it's Bita. Sorry.
I messed up your name.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time.
I know.
That's okay. But you know what? I'm glad that you corrected me.
Yes.
Because you have one of those names that somebody could pronounce a Bita.
Oh yeah, I get it all the time.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I do. I get Bita, Beta, Peter.
Right. Is that your full name?
Yeah, Bita is my full name.
Because now people will remember it.
Yeah, that's true.
You're currently a judge.
Yes, I'm a hearing magistrate district court.
And I was thinking back and reading up a little bit about you, and I know that you've been in Las Vegas for quite a while, many more years than how you look.
Oh, thanks.
No, it's true. And particularly when I was reading about you, and I had forgotten that you had worked for Judge Huffaker and Judge Guy. Now, this has got to be more than 20 plus years ago. Right?
Oh, yeah.
When both of them were on the bench. I remember them both very fondly. In fact, I know at one time you worked in the public defender's office. I started my legal career in the public defender's office also, and Steve Huffaker was the assistant public defender, and Judge Guy was one of the very few district court judges we had at that time.
Right.
And the first African-American judge.
Yeah. I mean, our court system has grown so much in the time that I've been here. I mean, I think when I started, we maybe had 12 district court judges.
Right.
If that, and now, I mean, it's over 32, I think. Well, and actually, if you count family court, it's even more than that. So it's really grown quite a bit.
You have to count family court because in those days, the 12 included, I believe, family court.
They did. Yeah. They did family law as well. And then once they broke off and designated family court as a whole separate system for district court judges, then it's literally increased like 6 times in the time that I've been here.
But one of the most amazing things that you have done is that you've worked within the legal system, within the court system, in creating mental health programs to try to avoid somebody returning to jail after committing after getting out or learning a lesson. Without any rehabilitation, they're going to end right back up in the same spot, right? So you created an unbelievable program.
So there are a couple of different programs that I've worked on, created. So I think the one that you're talking about is the community court. What I am trying to do is I look for long-term solutions, right? So if you have someone who is homeless and mentally ill, and that's causing them to commit those crimes, unless you really address that underlying issue, it's going to still be a revolving door. Right. So in creating the community court, what we do is instead of having like a one-size-fits-all sentence, the person's actually assessed to see what their issues are, and then they are linked to the supports that they need, whatever treatments they need, and then they're held accountable to make sure that they are accessing and working that treatment plan, basically. And every person commits a crime for different reasons. There are some people that are dangerous and need to go to prison and be segregated from society, but there's a lot of people who, if they're given the right kinds of supports, can safely reintegrate back into our community and really have it be a long-term solution. So that's really what I'm looking at. Also, so I do our mental health court, which is for criminal defendants who have a severe, serious mental illness. But what we really needed, and I also created just last year, was a co-occurring disorders court. So those are for defendants who have a mental illness not quite as severe as for my mental health court, but also have what we call co-occurring, or at the same time, they also have a substance use disorder. So, we're looking at long-term treatment solutions for the right kinds of defendants to make sure that we address those issues and they don't return back to the criminal system again.
As part of that problem, because the problem of homelessness is very significant in Vegas, and a lot of these people wouldn't be homeless if they had the right medications.
Yeah,
and getting the medication, getting the funds for it that must be an issue, right?
Yeah, well, what we make sure that we do, and we have a lot of community partners when we're talking about that. We've worked with the jail to make sure that we have a co-located social services person in the jail, so that way we can get them ready to be on some sort of Medicaid or insurance. So by the time they get out of the jail, they actually have access to the treatment that they need, and that we can make sure that they can continue to do that. But a lot of people with mental illness, they've burned through their bridges with their family, their friends, so they end up being homeless, and then they don't really, access that treatment that they need. So that's actually one of the big successes that we have in our mental health court, is that once we get them stable and get them in treatment, have them really learn about how to address that brain disease that they have through medication and other coping skills. We find that a lot of them start reconnecting with their family, which is a great motivating factor, because they're like, wow, I haven't talked to my daughter in 6 years. And now that I talk with her, I want to stay this way, right? This is what makes me feel good, is to have that relationship and connection. She's inviting me to her home and I get to see my grandkids. Like, that is a huge motivating factor. And it's been an amazing way to leverage, I guess, their continued success.
How do you balance that as a judge? I mean, now you're running for a district court judgeship in Department 1. Those types of sentencings, oftentimes, they are more serious than the kind we're talking about now. But you have to be able, as a judge, to discern who this person is and what type of sentencing and treatment is going to best serve the community and them.
Yeah,
that's a difficult balance, right?
It is, but I've been doing this for over 25 years. So I was a trial attorney for 20 years, and I'm very, very familiar with the kinds of things that the kinds of indicators that would let me know if someone is potential for positive behavior change, and some people unfortunately aren't. But the one thing that I do bring to the bench is I have expertise in mental health and substance use disorders that a lot of the other judges don't have. In fact, I teach the judges about mental health and what kinds of things that they need to look for. So, you end up seeing patterns in what's called a pre-sentence investigation report. It's a report that's prepared about that defendant that helps you prepare for the sentencing. And I think that my experience really gives me the basics and also some of the expertise on being able to figure out who I think would do well with those kinds of treatments and supports in our community. Obviously also being supervised by a probation officer.
Right. And don't you also do some training for the police department?
I do.
Yeah.
So in addition to mental health court and co-occurring disorders courts, I do basically almost all our mental health cases for our court. And part of that is also our civil commitment court, which has to do with, regular citizens, family, everyone in our community when they're in a mental health crisis. So what I do is I train our officers in what's called a crisis intervention training program on about the mental health crises and our court system. And so, part of their training is about de-escalating situations. So that way, they can remain safe when they have that contact with police. And I will tell you, mental health is a big issue. When we're talking about a mental health crisis, our police, just Metro alone, not even counting North Las Vegas, not counting Henderson, they get over 2,000 mental health crises calls a month. And that actually ends up coming to my court on what's called a petition for civil commitment, meaning someone's in such a crisis because of their mental illness that they're either unable to care for themselves or they are a danger to themselves or others. And so then I have to make a decision after we hear from experts about whether they need to stay in the hospital for treatment.
Well, I mean, it's a wonderful thing that you're involved in this and we have these programs. I mean, a lot of communities don't have them.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, our mental health court, because of a lot of our rurals don't have the same kinds of resources, we actually take defendants from all over our state. So we will get referrals from everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Now, talking about mental health, I know you are married to an attorney.
I am. Is that
and are you nuts to be married to two lawyers like that?
I think we do okay. I'm lucky that he's a really good guy. So,
but both of you are very, very busy in your individual lives and collectively. I mean, you both give back so much to the community and work with professionally and so hard. I mean, and Steve, busy at the legislature and private practice, and so you still get to see each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad when he's separated, and up in Carson City, but he's really good about making sure that he calls, and we talk every day, and it's awesome when he's back. So he's now back, so it's always great, even though we do both lead very busy lives.
So to tell our viewers why should they vote for you for a district court judge?
When you look at it, I think it's pretty clear that I'm the best candidate for the job. I've been a judge now for the last 5 years, so I have the judicial experience where my opponent doesn't. But I think another thing is that I would add a wealth of knowledge to the bench as well, in talking about the mental health issues and the substance use disorder issues, which unfortunately we see a lot of in our criminal justice system. I also, as a judge, had a civil calendar, so I'm well versed in both of those kinds of cases that come to our court, whereas my opponent isn't. So I think if you're looking at that, that would be, why I think I would be the best choice. But in addition to that, in addition to my experience, I've also done a lot of stuff on top of my regular day-to-day work to really try and improve our community, talking about the programs that I've started to really look at long-term solutions for the safety of our community and better lives. Yeah.
Look, I mean, you're an avid Golden Knights fan, so that's enough for me to vote.
Yeah, today is Throwback Thursday, and I posted a photo of our very first Golden Knights game, which was the very first preseason game. I can't believe that we're, in the playoffs again. It's awesome.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, yeah. So thank you so much, Bita, for appearing on our show today. Good luck in the election.
Thank you.
You didn't have a primary, did you?
I didn't. No.
So you weren't on the last ballot, but you'll be on this ballot, because if there's more than two people, then there's a primary. If there's only two, there's not a primary. So right. Good luck in the primary. I hope we have a post office that can deliver those ballots by then, but we'll see.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge. And we'll be right back with Jasmin Lilly-Spells. My daughter Dana fought a long battle with Crohn's disease before passing last year.
It's our goal to help the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation find a cure for this horrible disease.
Join Max and I in scoring our goal to find a cure. Well, welcome back. With me now is Jasmin Lilly-Spells. And Jasmin, you're running for district court, and you're currently with the Public Defender's Office. And, you know, if I recall, look, I remember working in the Public Defender's Office, 45 years ago. And so many of my colleagues who worked in the Public Defender's Office went on to just become amazing judges. I don't know if it was a training in the Public Defender's Office or it was a personality thing, but I mean, there's quite a stable, including my dear friend Michael Cherry, who ultimately became a Supreme Court justice. So you have big shoes to fill.
I do, and those are some of the judges that I most admire. I think that being in the Public Defender's Office, the volume that we see being literally in the trenches and in court every day, as well as the trial experience, lends itself to allow prior practitioners who do defense work, specifically out of the Public Defender's Office, to be great attorneys or great judges, because the district court level is really a trial court. And so understanding those issues, also just having the ability to relate with different people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different types of lifestyles. You really get to know people on the human level. And I think that is extremely important, because it's not cases that are coming before the courtroom, it's people who are coming before the courtroom. Even when businesses are involved, it's still people who run those businesses and work for those businesses. So being able to relate to people on that human level and understand the issues that are most important to them, I think is extremely significant and needs to be taken into account on the bench. So that's what I'm ready to do.
What brought you to Vegas?
I've been here approximately 15 years, and I came here to go to UNLV. I am a William S. Boyd School of Law graduate.
Yeah.
So I love that law school just because it has such a focus on community service and giving back to the community. And it really is a familial environment. Everyone that goes to that law school, I think, establishes just great relationships across the board and across the aisle. So I'm very fortunate to be an alumni of Boyd School of Law.
And you're a chief deputy. So how does one become a chief deputy in the Public Defender's Office?
You have to have a number of years of experience, and you go from being an associate attorney to a regular attorney. And then after you have practiced for it was 6 years when I was coming up for it. Now some deputies can get it after approximately 5 years. But you have to be evaluated, and you have to have a certain level of trial experience, as well as being able to handle cases in different stages. So you need to be an attorney who can handle cases from the beginning to the end. And upon that evaluation, you're recommended to become a chief.
When you become a judge, life becomes a balancing, more or less. I mean, you're balancing the credibility of witnesses, of evidence, and then when it comes time to sentence somebody, you have to create a balance between, you know, the victims and the defendant. It's a difficult job. You know, how do you go approach getting, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here. I mean, it's how do you do it? I mean, it's you know, on one hand you've got to be objective, on the other hand you try to be empathetic. I mean, I could never be a judge for those reasons. I really could. It takes special people to be able to objectively do that kind of work.
I'm a mom of 4 kids, ages 2, 5, 9, and 11.
Okay, now you're telling me that you are older than how you look.
Just a little bit, maybe. So, you know, children keep you young because you are constantly keeping up with them, especially in the area of social media and being able to do things like this, Zoom calls and things like that. So In our household, obviously, there's a lot of sibling rivalry. We have 3 boys and 1 girl. And I think that experience alone will help me on the bench, because there is not a day that goes by where we are not juggling something, especially in the age of this pandemic. I am now Chief Deputy Public Defender. I'm candidate for District Court Department 23. I am part homeschooler in conjunction with my husband. And so being able to just, I think, handle that full plate, and also when they have an interaction that doesn't end well, this person did this or this person said that, you have to listen to both sides. You have to know them a little bit, ask questions, try to figure out what has been the relationship between them, and come to a decision that's fair in your household, because otherwise your kids are going to think that you treat one better than the other, and that's not good for the parents. So I think some of those same skill sets will transfer over to be able to be a judge. Additionally, as a defense attorney, that's what I do every day, really. I have to look at what the opposition's case is and figure out, okay, what are all of the other witnesses saying? What really happened? So I'm constantly looking at things from both sides in determining whether we need to negotiate a case or whether we need to go to trial, what our defense strategy is going to be. So that's something that I've been doing daily for well over a decade now.
We can use some help at our house with our kids if you have some extra time.
How old are your children?
Actually, I'm half kidding, but I raised 3 girls myself, and but fortunately now they're all in their 20s. So,
yay!
So they made it. Did you always want to be a judge when you were going to Boyd at UNLV? Do you have thoughts at that time about one day perhaps being a judge, or is that something that you acquired after practicing law?
I didn't want to be a judge. My grandma has been telling me to be a judge for a few years now, and I kept saying, no, who wants to do that? Really, I think that the time in history requires that we have judges who are transparent and accountable to the people, who recognize that being a judge is a job of public service. And our job is really to serve the people who come before us and to do the best job we can to ensure that people have fair hearings, fair access to the courts. Being in court absolutely every day, I've seen some things that somewhat made me disheartened. And I felt like, you know what, I am capable, I have the skill set, and so now I'm ready to become a judge. But without that push from my grandma, I don't think I would have ever been here. So if there are any grandmas listening, just remember to always motivate your grandchildren, because they can be anything that you want them to be, with a little bit of encouragement.
I've always tried to do that. I had 3 girls, so I was always trying to do that with my young ladies. What kind of skill do you think it takes to be a judge? When you think about, what are the most important characteristics? What are they to you?
The first one is courage. The second one is integrity. And the third one is going to be competence. When I'm speaking of competence, I'm talking about legal competence, I'm talking about cultural competence, I'm talking about people competence. And that skill set is derived by engaging with people who are different than you, socioeconomically, gender, race, because there are all different types of people and businesses that come before the court. And so you have to have an understanding really of what is important to people. And sometimes that's different depending on a person's upbringing or background or relationships. So I think that that's very important. And I've done that. I engage with different people on a regular basis. It's important to have courage because we need judges who are going to make those tough decisions without regard for who the parties are. It's not fair when we're making decisions based upon who's before me, who's more powerful, who has more money. That's not fair and equitable. And so it takes courage in order to administer true justice. Integrity, because when you're a public servant, it's not about you. And so you can't make decisions that are based upon your self-interest, based upon your selfish needs, or based upon maybe a career motivation that you want to be somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years. Over my career, I've shown that I am a person who is courageous because I stand next to people who society wants to throw away every single day, and I argue for them. I've shown integrity because when I have made any type of mistake or something has been incorrect, I am the first one to correct that and learn from that and move forward. And I think that I've shown that I am a person who is not only competent within the law, but that I have cultural competence and people competence. Those are the things that are important to me, and I think that they're important to our community as well.
It is very well said, and I couldn't agree more. And this has got to be a very difficult time to run for election, for anything. Running for a judgeship is very difficult because you have to run countywide, unlike an assembly or a county commission district. And it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time. You can't really go out and shake hands in a traditional way. So how are you dealing with, getting yourself known in the community?
So I'm trying to attend as many events virtually as possible. So if anyone has an event that you would like me to come out to, please just contact me. I'm readily accessible. We also have a lovely group of volunteers who is engaging in phone banking. So we're reaching out to voters. When COVID first started, we were reaching out to make sure that people had the resources that they need, any phone numbers, any assistance that we could be of. We definitely wanted to get that information in the voters' hands. So we will still be continuing some of that. We do some texting. And some of the things that I did during the primary is I would host, I called it All That Jazz with Jasmin. And it was really just kind of like a virtual meet and greet open forum where people could log on and ask me any question they wanted. Some people asked me about my hobbies, my favorite dessert, different things like that. So I want voters to be able to get to know me. And if there's questions that you have of me, I want to be able to answer those for you. So we will probably be doing some more of those and talking to people like the lovely Mr. Bernstein. Thank you for having me on your show, and just trying to meet more people so that they can learn more about me. And I can also learn more about them and what's important to them.
We have less than 30 seconds left, Jasmin, but I'll bite. What is your hobby? One of your hobbies?
My hobby is traveling and reading.
Okay. Novels, fiction, nonfiction? What do you like?
I like everything. History, but mostly nonfiction.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Jasmin Lilly-Spells, and good luck in the election.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
When sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.